Hey everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and today I'm here with a design team post for Scrapping for Less. Today I'm going to be making this spinner card, and in order to make a spinner card like this, you're going to need mirror images. Now, if you don't have stamps that are mirror images, you can make your own with whatever image you might have. And this is a stamp specifically for doing mirror images. But if you don't have one of these, this is by Stampendous, but if you don't have one of these, any solid stamp that will fit the image, so the image will fit within the solid portion of the stamp, you can use. So what you're going to do is stamp the image that you want to mirror onto the solid stamp. And then you're going to take a piece of paper and just stick it on top. Now you do want to be careful that you don't move it around and you get it in there flat. And then just move your finger around it, and you're going to be adhering the ink to the paper from the solid stamp. So that's basically what you're going to do to mirror the image. And you may have to do this a couple times to get the feel of it and figure out what you need. And that's how I made mine. Now, for the card itself, you're going to need a card base that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So you're going to have a piece of paper that's 8 1/2 inches by 5 1/2. And then for the inside of the card, you're going to cut a piece that's 8 1/2 inches by 5 1/4. You are going to score both of them, both pieces, down the center. The one for your card base, and then the other one is for the inside. And then you're going to score it at 2 1/2 inches on both ends, or at 2 1/2 inches, 4 1/4 inches, and then 6 inches. And that's all the scoring that you'll be doing. Then you're going to take a die, and you can have whatever style or size you want as long as it fits inside of the two, in the center of the two outside score lines. And it's going to kind of go right down the center of the center score line. And then you're going to fold it so that it's a valley, a mountain, and a valley. And then it's going to kind of look like an M or a W when you get done. And that's going to be the inside piece. Now what you need to think about is how you're going to be decorating it. And you're going to decorate the front of the card base itself and the sides of the inside panel. And the inside panel is going to be 2 1/4 by 5 inches, because remember that's 5 1/4 inches, so in order to get that border around it. And those, you'll need 2 pieces for that of whatever pattern paper that you want. And then we're going to kind of put the piece in the center of what's going to make it spin. So I used liquid glue along with clear nylon thread. I'm going to use liquid glue right in the center, and because this thread is very, very thin, I am sticking it right in the center of the score line. And then I'm just going, after I put the liquid glue in there, I'm going to spread the piece of nylon thread, and you want it to be pretty taut. And then I am also going to take some Scotch tape and put that over. So the Scotch tape will help it so that the wetness of the liquid glue isn't going to get on your card and keep it sealed together, but the liquid glue will help keep that in there. Now you're going to want that to dry for a little while. Once you let it dry completely, then you can kind of get to this next portion. In order to put the images on there, you're going to put one of the images on the bottom underneath the thread, kind of right in the center, and then you're going to smush it in between the other image, or the mirrored image. And that's going to create the spinner card. Now the rest of this is mostly just decorating. Now I decorated some of the sides, and you will see I kind of put different things on there, and you just want to be sure that what you use isn't too large so that it gets in the way of the image that is going to spin and kind of hold that up. So you want to make sure whatever you're putting in there isn't going to affect the image itself. Now you see I put that bird down at the bottom, and it was a little bit too big because it was getting stuck, the image that was on the spinner was getting stuck on that one. So you don't want to do that. So I ended up tearing this off in a little bit once I realized that. I almost tore my paper, but I wasn't going to start this card over since I already had everything on there. So I ended up just taking some of the flowers I had colored from the sentiment stamp, the Exotic Sentiments stamp set, and glue those over that. So for this I'm using the Bird Talk stamp set, the Exotic Sentiment stamp set, and then the Bird Talk papers for this. And the coloring I did for the images, I used some alcohol markers. I'm still playing with the Ohuhu markers, so that is what I used on there. I used VersaFine Onyx Black ink for all of my sentiments, and I just stamped them directly on the pattern paper. And the only thing I would say is this pattern paper is slick, so you do want to make sure that you're really careful that you don't slide or push your stamp a little bit, so you don't want to put too much pressure on it when you first put it down. Then in order to adhere this to the card, you're going to want some strong adhesive, and you're going to add it to the two sides of the card, of the inside of that card panel. And so those are the 2.5 inch sides. Both sides you're going to put it on there. And I used double-sided adhesive because I wanted it nice and strong. Now this is where I decided I did not want that bird on there, but I almost ripped my paper, my actual cardstock, and so I was just trying to figure out and play around with this and end up adding, like I said, a couple of the flowers to this to hide what I tore, because then I ended up just tearing it apart and saying I was leaving those feet and part of his tail on there. And I just covered it up with some other images, and it worked out just fine. And then some of the other images I colored, I'm just going to kind of use as I decorate this different parts of this card. And then you're also going to have to get into the front panel of the card. And on the front panel, I am using a panel that is 4 inches by 5 1/4. And the strip that is on there is 1.5 inches by 5 1/4. Then the ovals I'm using are the same ovals that I used to cut the image out, or not the image out, but to cut the center out for the spinner portion. And I just used those same ones on there. Again, I stamped the sentiment "Let's Get Wild" on the front of one of them. I just cut 2 different sizes and layered them up. And then I'm going to use a couple of the images again that I colored, one of the flowers, one of the leaves, and one of the birds that I colored right on the top there. And I have these new like glue dots. They're kind of interesting. They're kind of a pain. I picked them up at Tuesday morning, and because I wanted a little bit, this is kind of a thick card because you got the panel on the inside plus all the layering going on. So I wanted it popped up and give it a little bit of dimension, but I didn't want it too high. So that's what these are. And they're in between 2 pieces of plastic, which is kind of a pain to get them apart, but they worked well for what I wanted them to do and to be. And like I said, by popping up those images. And then once you open up the card, like I said, you can just wind up that bird so that it spins, and then just hold it after you wind it, shut the card when you mail it, so that when the person opens it, the bird will start spinning. And then back to this so that we can get these final pieces in, and then get that inside panel inside of the card base itself. So I'm going to remove the backing off of this, and I am doing one side at a time. You can certainly do both at the same time that you remove the backing. I just found it easier to do this. And you're going to kind of create that border. So it's 1/4 of an inch smaller long ways, so then you want to make sure that you leave that 1/4 of an inch on the side of the card, and then you're just going to take that backing off and then fold over the panel, and that's it. So here I am winding it up, shutting the card, and then when I open it, it starts to spin. So that's it. I want to thank everybody for joining me. I hope you all have a great day. Stay healthy, take care, and I will talk to you next time.